Welcome to Code Jogging. In this video, we are going to look at state management in Compose UI. In our previous videos, we've been using states in our code, where we convert variables into a live data or into a mutable state variable. Okay, so in this video, what we are going to do is we are going to explain how to use the state or mutable state in your project or in your mobile app development. So without wasting much time, let's get started. Now let's build the basic UI to hold the concept of the state management. So now we are going to use box, and in case you are not familiar with the box components, we've done video on that. You can watch it from the layout groups. Then we have to center the data, that's align. Okay, then we call the button test, then we have counter. Okay, so now this is the basic UI we are going to use to explain the state management. So let's run our code. Yes, let's change the color to white. Okay, so now let's run it again and then see the output. Yes, now what we are going to do is we are going to create a basic counter. When the user clicks on the button, we need to update the value to the current value. That's default is 0. When you click on the button, you should auto increment the value. So default is 0. When you click on it again, it becomes 1. When you click on it again, it becomes 2, and then so on. So now let's declare our variable counter equals 0. Okay, so as I said from the previous videos, when we looked at button component, I told you that for us to handle any on-click events, we need to do it here. Okay, so when the user clicks on it, we need to update it from 0 to 1, 1 to 2, and then so on. So we want to show it on the UI, so we need to append to the button label. So default, when you run it, we are supposed to see 0 counter. Okay, so now let's run our code and then see the output. Okay, so now we are now seeing 0 counter here. The goal is to let the user click on the button, and then the 0 will change to 1. And when we click on it again, it will change from 1 to 2, and then so on. So let's click on it again. Yes, nothing is showing here. Let's find out whether our code is working perfectly, just that it's not showing on the UI. So let's console log this one, and then let's make it counter. Okay, so let's clear this, and then let's run this one again. Okay, so let's go to the console, and then let's make sure that we've selected the emulator. Now let's click on the button. Okay, 1. Okay, so now we can see it from here. That the value here is updating itself, but it's not showing on the UI. Yes, now this is where we are going to use the state to update our UI. State helps us to update the UI with the current value, and state also holds a read-only value. It means that we can't do conditions, a lot of stuff in the state. Okay, but we can update the value of the state. So now we are going to convert this value into a mutable state value. So for us to achieve that, we need to use by, and then followed by the mutable state value. And since we are using an integer, we will call 0. And if we are supposed to use a string, we will call double quotes, and then so forth. So now let's stick to the integer, and then we need to import Okay, it has already been imported. Okay, now let's run our code and then find out something, and I will explain the reason why there's a red line under our mutable state. Okay, this is what we were expecting. Yes, although we've achieved what we were expecting, but when it comes to our code, there's a red line here. It means that it's a syntax error. Okay, though the system allows us to run it, but it has a problem or a limitation. Let me show you the limitation. First, if you're using the mutable state like this and then it's being underlined, it means that the code can be called once, or it can be called within the function. Okay, so now we can suppress this one so that the error will be gone, and then let's create a function here. Okay, let's create a function here, and then let's call it updated counter. Okay, so now let's console log this one, counter. Okay, counter. So counter becomes an integer here. Okay, so now let's call our counter here. Okay, so let me remove this one, and then let me go to the console and then clear everything. So let's run our code again, though we've suppressed the warning. Okay, so now let's go to the emulator and copy counter again, and then let me see the name. Okay, counter. So let's use this one. Okay, now we have counter 0. So let's click on it again. Okay, now you can see that nothing is working here, because as I said, it can be called once, and we use that opportunity to call it inside here. That's the reason why when we run our code we had 0. Okay, so for us to keep on remembering the value for the variable, and it can be updating, we can also update it anytime we want. Then we want to surround this one with remember, so that this value will always remember the this variable will remember the value here. Okay, so now this one will hold the data for us. Okay, so now we've called the remember, because we've surrounded the remember with this. Okay, we can now have our counter being used inside this function and also in our function here. So now let's click on it and see. Now you can see that it's working. Let's go and then check the emulator, then you can see that it's working. You can see that it's working here. So let's click on it again, then you can see that it's working in both functions. That's the onCreate function and then the updated counter function. Okay, so now there's one thing I want us to look at. Though we were able to use the mutable state to update our UI, or to recompose the UI, or refresh the UI and then show the current value, there's one thing we need to look at. Let's look at the point where the user rotates the screen from portrait to landscape, or landscape to portrait. Okay, with what we've done here, anytime the user rotates the screen, then the app also resets to the initial stage or the default stage. What I'm trying to say is, let's run our code. Okay, let's run our code here again, and then let me show you. Now this is our initial stage, that's the 0 counter. Now assuming we've reached 2 or 3, and then the user rotates the screen. Okay, using this emulator you won't see the changes, but using it on a real device, then you can see the changes there. You realize that here, when the user rotates the screen, instead of maintaining the 3 counter, and then when you click on the button, it will still continue from 3, 4, 5 going. Then as soon as the user as soon as the user change the screen position or rotate the screen, then you realize that the value then becomes 0 instead of being what we were having at first, like 3. Okay, so now there's a way of preventing that from happening. Okay, so for us to prevent it from happening, we have to use a saveable. Okay, remember saveable. And the saveable allows us to store the data for temporary use, though we've not closed the whole app, so we can still use the saveable value in the variable. Okay, so what we are trying to do is, with the saveable, we should be able to even send it across activities or pages, so that anytime we leave our page and then we come back or we recreate our page, we shouldn't lose the value. Okay, so for us to achieve that, then we can use the saveable here. Okay, and then we run it. Yes, so it's still working as it is, and when we rotate the screen, we will still achieve what we were doing. Yes, and now we can see that we still have the same thing here. Okay, so I want you to try it on a real device. Okay, I want you to try it on a real device, and then you will know what I was talking about. Okay, so this brings us to the end of this video, and I believe now whenever you see a state value or immutable state variable, you understand and you will know how to use it very well. Okay, so in case you have any questions, you can leave it at the comment section, and then in case you have any suggestions that we can use to improve this channel and then make it good use for beginners in coding, you're always welcome. You can send us a mail that we provided on the channel, and once we receive it, we will communicate with you as soon as possible, and then we will implement your idea. Now, thank you for watching this video. See you on next video. Bye bye.